Welcome to Students of Aging, the podcast that honors the incredible journeys and stories of seniors growing older. Tune in and become a part of our community as we redefine what it means to age gracefully and purposefully.
As my world contracts externally, it becomes more internally. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Students of Aging podcast. If you are here for the first time, welcome. If you are a repeat viewer, welcome back. My name is Sandra Thompson. I am a member of the Senior Advisory Council at WoodGreen. They are producing these podcasts. These podcasts are funded by the federal government. Today, Sheila Miller, Jania Zapotoski, and I will be discussing aging in place, what it means, the challenges, some of the barriers, self-care, and coping.
I'm Sheila Miller. I'm also a member of the WoodGreen Senior Advisory Committee, and I'm going to talk about what aging in place means. 77% of Canadians over 50 surveyed would rather age in place. Aging in place means staying in your home, your place of residence, as you get older, and having affordable access to services, health, community, and social supports, the services you need to live safely and independently in your home for as long as you wish and are able to safely do so. Incidentally, providing home care and home generally costs $127 per day, while costs in a long-term care facility costs $207 a day. So there is a cost saving in providing assistance and care at home so people can remain in their residence while they age. Here are some models of successful aging in place. First of all, there's nursing home without walls. This program optimizes nursing home resources to support older adults living in their community. It works to prolong home residency, minimize unnecessary emergency department visits, and aims to combat social isolation and enhance health-related knowledge and empowerment. Local communities are involved to meet the needs of an aging population. The second example is a program called Enabling Aging in Place Promising Practices, Maple Ridge Pitt Meadows Community Services in BC. This provides a holistic approach to supporting older adults by bringing together the social and medical models of health and wellness, and it connects older adults with them. Person-centeredness is a core philosophy, and this enables access to healthcare services, access to social and community supports, and access to system navigation support, which means how to optimize the use of health and community assets through personal navigation and accompaniment to support older adults. The third example is right here in Ontario, and it's OASIS. OASIS is an older adult-driven model of aging in place, and it's located in NARCS, N-A-R-C-S, naturally occurring retirement communities. And these can be in rental apartment buildings, condos, or in houses in communities with a significant older population. And it's designed to strengthen and sustain healthy communities of older adults by addressing important aspects of healthy aging, such as isolation, nutrition, physical fitness, and sense of purpose in life. OASIS is founded to serve older adults who, with some support, are able to live independently. And the purpose of the program is to provide, through collaboration with the public sector, not-for-profit and private sector organizations, a supportive living program for older adults that builds community among members in the setting of their housing And in this way, it hopes to prevent isolation, facilitate better nutrition, promote physical fitness, and foster social connections and self-determination. OASIS uses existing resources and facilities within each city and community to offer a unique set of services based on the needs of the elders. And then there is PACE, Program of All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly, here in Ontario. This is the collaborative effort by social service providers to locate services and supports connected to the needs of residents in buildings that predominantly serve elders. Then there is nonprofit assisted living. These are assisted living services which are effected through organizations like the Victorian Order of Nurses and other nonprofit community-based agencies to provide assistance with personal hygiene, essential homemaking, and safety reassurance checks. Home visits may occur multiple times throughout the day, during evenings, weekends, or overnight. So it's encouraging to see that there are increasing ways in which we can age in place as we age and not be institutionalized.
I'm determined to stay in my own home until the end. But once having decided that and really given it some thought, I then had to say, all right, what are the barriers? What are the challenges? And what is it I have to do to make an adaptation so I can be successful at what I want to do? So I really thought about this quite a bit, and it's a lived experience for me. So one of the challenges and barriers, I guess, together was bathing, because actually stepping into the bathtub is a bit risky sometimes, because I use a walker, I have mobility issues, my balance is not good. So that was a barrier, and that was a challenge at the same time. So I do have a shower chair. So I sit in the chair the whole time. And I don't really have a shower. I put water in the bathtub quite high, and then that's what I use to bathe. So I have to sort of use the grab bar beside the shower and get out of the bathtub and make sure that I don't slip. So that was really quite a challenge. And then getting some chores done during the day takes me a longer period of time. And then one of the other barriers was doing laundry, because there's steps down to the laundry room. So I have to take my buggy and lift it down the steps and then bring it back up the steps. And getting out of the building, I have to lift my walker down 5 stairs. Mobility was the barrier, the challenge. And I had to sort of think, how do I manage all that? And not only that, how do I schedule my time so that I'm not using the stairs every day? Because I have a heart condition and some other health issues. So the next challenge was dealing with home safety. As I come in, I look at these wires and I constantly think, oh, those are a trip hazard. I'm very conscious of what can be a trip hazard. I had to really plan a clear pathway from my bed in my unit through the living area to the kitchen and to the bathroom. So there were nothing hanging down. There were no wires anywhere that could be a trip hazard. No scatter rugs, no rugs at all, period. And especially in the kitchen, and we talked about this.
We did.
I had to move dishes down from the top shelves down to the lower shelves. And then I have a sort of a wheeled cart in the kitchen where I put my pots and pans, because I can't be reaching. I used to have a step ladder with 2 steps on it. I can't do that anymore. This is a real challenge for a lot of older people, is how do they reach their utensils? You talked about that, Sheila. How do you reach your pots and pans and everything else that you need to use to feed yourself with? That was quite a learning curve. And reaching and standing on chairs is, I will never do that. Never, ever do that. And also at night, I have a little rechargeable flashlight on my bedside that I use to navigate at night. I have to use that just to make sure that I'm not tripping over everything. But it's a constant, I'm just constantly looking, is the area all clear for me so I can navigate safely. Because I don't use the walker in my unit. I may use a cane, but I can certainly walk. Leaving the apartment, I have to use the walker. So I spent a lot of time on the home safety thing and just thought, I really don't want to be isolated in my own home. I want to be able to get out, not only home safety, but safety on the street. How do I stay safe on the street? What do I need to be aware of on the street to make sure that I use the curb, I use the street lights, I don't cross in the middle of the street, which I used to do. Don't anymore at all. I'll use the crossing guard. I love that crossing guard. And I won't cross that big intersection between Broadview and Danforth. So there's all sorts of alterations and adaptations that have to be made. I had to do it all myself. And actually, my doctor had an occupational therapist come into my apartment at one point. He was concerned because I had this really severe eye infection. And she looked around. I said, well, look in the bathroom. She looked around. And then she said to me, I wish there was something I could do for you. And also, I do make sure that I can hang on to furniture as I'm moving, depending on how I feel at that particular moment. If I'm really wobbly, I'll hang on to the chair or the edge of the bed and that sort of thing, just to make sure. It's a constant work, but it's something you have to be always vigilant about. And when I get up from my chair, I wait a couple of seconds before I actually turn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you're agreeing.
Yes.
And you never turn from the waist. That's a no-no. You turn your whole body at once because your balance is off and you're likely to really, the potential is there for a fall.
I used to see this commercial on TV where this old woman was standing and she just moved her body this way. And I thought at the time, I was younger then, and I thought at the time, why is she moving that way? But now I really understand it. And the three of us are determined to stay in our own homes. As you were talking, Sandra, what came to me was that we get used to our terrain, our area, and we know where our objects and our furniture are. Just think if we had to move and have to transition into learning where everything was. I had a hard enough time doing that when I moved from Vancouver. And I would go to my cupboard and I'd go automatically to a cupboard that I thought held dishes, but it held something else.
I'm just glad that I don't fall. There's some degree of loss and grief.
I experience loss about my ability to do things as I was able to before. I think for me there is a feeling of loss that I can't reach the cupboards I used to reach. I can't stoop to get the things I need. I can't walk as easily as I used to. I find I have a certain amount of grief around that.
And I have grieved the loss of my mobility, and I find using a walker is really, really difficult to get used to and to accept. It's been a very difficult process for me. And I know I have to, but still.
Well, I just feel the frustration.
That's
Okay, today I wake up and there's another challenge to deal with, and I get frustrated. Also, if I can't move as well as I think I should be able to move, I wonder who's watching me as I'm walking down the street, because my balance is not always good, and I think, I wonder if they think I'm drunk.
in a sense, it gets me down a little bit, but it's not constructive to get really upset all the time. But another one I think that's really important is finances. And that is a real challenge. I'm on a fixed income, which means my money all comes at the beginning of the month. How do I take the money I get and budget it for the whole month so it lasts till the next series of payments? So I think this is really crucial. And some women and some people may not have had to do that before and have run up a lot of debt or something like that. And then they're faced with this particular issue of finances and budgeting and shopping and paying the housing charge. And if they have to pay utilities or anything, there's some fixed expenses, and then there's the other expenses, such as groceries. So I think people have difficulty with that. They need to sort of be really careful about planning for that. And then people, especially if they've had a fall, sometimes get very isolated. And that's a challenge and a barrier. How do they find a community? How do I find a community? I have a community at WoodGreen, and I have a community of sorts in the building that I live in. I live in a co-op. So there is some, communal activities that happen in the co-op. But I think others that may be living not in that sort of environment and don't have access to that would find themselves very isolated and lonely. And that can lead to all sorts of issues for people. Depression, poor nutrition, lack of exercise, loss of cognitive abilities, and why am I here, and wondering, what their life is all about. I have no purpose. I don't feel useful.
Well, along with the challenges, what is really important to me, and I think to all of us, is having a quality of life. And my goal is to self-care. And I think historically women have, for the most part, been the caregivers. And for many years, they've looked after their children, they've looked after their husbands, and most probably their aging parents. And really, in doing all of that work, possibly not taking care of themselves. I think it's really important, if we want to continue on living in our own home, that we do self-care.
And learn to advocate for ourselves.
But the experts do say that the most important things are exercise, nutrition, and sleep. And they can be challenging because our bodies change and we need specific nutrition or different nutrition. Exercise, I find for myself, is very important because I find it gets my blood flowing and I'm able to think more clearly. Sheila, you mentioned advocating for ourselves. Years ago, when I was working in a chronic care facility, we would have team meetings, and those team meetings included the family and the patient. And it was almost unbearable to watch because it was like the patient was not there. In many cases, the patient would be cognitively impaired, but not always. And we talked about the patient instead of to the patient.
Or with the patient.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's very important that we, if we can, to advocate for ourselves. And I do that all the time, especially in the doctor's office, when I'm asking for some feedback and the doctor tells me, well, you should do this, you should take this medication, and I don't agree with that. At that point in time, I do advocate for myself, and it is very helpful. But in order to do that, you have to have some information. You have to know what you're talking about.
I've had to do that a number of times
Yes.
and be very assertive about it,
Absolutely.
because there's a tendency to sort of dismiss your concerns are my concerns. Doctor wanted to give me a medication once. I said, no, absolutely not. It makes me nauseated and I won't take it.
So a part of self-care for me means connectivity with my family and my friends, deeper relationships than I had earlier in life, because I realized that time is of the essence and I need to say things that are important. I think we're very fortunate to live next door to a community center that we've got all the things that we might want or need,
Absolutely.
and the social contacts there are very valuable. So one thing that's important to me is knowing my limitations, and I think that, Sandra, you mentioned that under, the challenges and the barriers, because I tend to do too much, and at the end of the day, I think to myself, okay, you did it to yourself. So I try to make a list of things I have to do in a day, and I try to prioritize them. Most times I overdo it, but I'm learning, and I think that's the important part.
I rail against the limitations. That's one of the things that I grieve about. So I push myself sometimes more than I should because I don't want to really acknowledge on occasion what my limitations are. Well, the consequences of pushing myself are that I feel exhaustion. I feel a level of depression because it just makes me aware of how much I cannot do. Even though there's still a lot that I do, there's still so much that I can't. And accepting that is a process of adjusting to what it is to age, whether you're aging in place or not.
And every day is different.
True.
So it's hard to determine at the beginning of the day just how much you can do.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the antidote to some of that is when I'm at home to say, okay, that's enough, and to have a rest period.
Yes, I do that too.
So that is very helpful, but I agree with you. I also rail against that because I remember the times when I could do this, and yes, I was tired at the end of the night, but it wasn't the same kind of exhaustion. And
You could run up and down the stairs like I could. You could take 2 stairs at a time.
Exactly.
and not hold on to the railings.
Right, to the railing. Right. My world has shrunk. It's shrunk to the few blocks around the building I live in. Partly that's COVID, the effects of COVID, but it also is because I don't drive anymore, so I don't have access to the wheels that got me to various parts of the city and being able to get out of the city and go to parks and little communities. I'm now pretty well confined to where I live and the neighborhood around it. And fortunately, I'm in a neighborhood which is rich in resources. I have parks, libraries, friends, coffee shops, natural food stores. There's farmers markets. It is a very rich community, but it still is limiting.
Confining.
It's confining to me.
Fortunately, it's a rich community.
Yeah.
It's very fortunate for us.
And I chose it specifically when I moved from Vancouver. I chose it specifically for that because I knew that I was close to shopping, I was close to transportation, and on the occasion when I do have to go downtown, it's helpful. I find that the neighborhood is very friendly as well. You get to know the people who are serving you, you meet the same people on the street. It feels like I'm back home in my little town in Quebec, where you're walking on the main street and you say hello to people because they are your neighbors or your friends or whatever. That's the way that I feel in our neighborhood. I'll run into people who live in my building or somebody that I've met.
Yeah.
Or somebody at the community center. One more thing that I wanted to mention that's really important to me is staying curious. I went to university. That was a great time in my life. And I always say, which is half joking, my university now is Google and YouTube.
Well, it's also the other people in my life.
Yes.
That's my university.
Well, I went to university when I was 40, and it was probably one of the best things I ever did for myself. And I really, just really opened my eyes to what learning could be, and that's where I really learned how to learn. So yes, but a lot of people now let their fingers do the walking, ordering online or having your groceries delivered, that sort of thing.
Well, that's also a learning process.
And you know, I have never done that, not even during COVID.
Well, I've ordered from, actually, I ordered from Madoko the other day, and I can just go and pick it up.
Oh, well, that's different.
I just can pick it up rather than sort of running around the store.
I like to be out. I like to look at things. I like to see people. I like to, if it's food, I like to
Touch it?
touch it. Right. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
And be out in the world.
Yeah, sometimes I need things that I just can't get.
Well, that's different.
And
Yeah.
I order them online.
Yes.
And that's different.
Yeah.
I have a cousin who doesn't live in Toronto. He lives in another large city. He almost never leaves his house.
That's what
Never.
yeah.
And the shades are pulled down, and he orders everything, including dog food for his pet, which he doesn't walk. He opens up the back door and lets the dog out in the yard. And that's become increasingly part of how he lives his life. He used to be out and about, but then he started ordering, and the more and more that he ordered, it seemed as if the more and more his world shrunk to the little house he lives in. It's absolute isolation.
Self-imposed isolation.
Absolutely.
I like to get out
It becomes,
because it
becomes like
changes my outlook. I wake up in the morning and I may not be feeling as energetic or as happy as I would like to be. And just getting out into the neighborhood makes all the difference in the world. And I don't want somebody picking out my groceries. I do
I
love
agree.
I do love to touch them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have some questions for the two of you that perhaps we can end on. Let's start with you, Sandra. What keeps you going?
what keeps me going are the community of friends that I have and the stories they tell. I'm learning more about stories of their life and the smaller incidents that happen that make up sort of what I call that sort of tapestry of life. That I really enjoy. And I enjoy looking at beautiful things. And I'm especially fond of looking at the trees without leaves because I see these beautiful sculptural shapes in the trees. And I'm often out there just looking at the trees. And I'm always wondering, how do they know how to grow? How do they know how to grow in this shape? What kind of intelligence do they have? And this keeps me curious about that sort of process. And then in the spring when the flowers come. So it's the smaller things, or the sun shining through a paperweight that I have and the shadow that it casts. It's the smaller things that really keep me wondering.
So you appreciate the smaller things.
Well, I appreciate the smaller things, but when we were in the library the other day talking, I kept looking at a tree outside the library window that has these marvelous
Yes.
sculptural shapes to it. I kept looking at it and thinking, that's quite gorgeous. That's quite beautiful. It's just something that really attracts me a lot.
That's wonderful.
What keeps you going, Sheila?
Well, similarly to Sandra, it's the people in my life and the people that I meet and the stories that they tell and the experiences that they have, which makes me feel part of the larger existence of humanity. I'm not just me. I'm me connected to the world. And that's basic. It's really people, mostly. I mean, there's the issue of learning new things. And that happens through WoodGreen a lot, where I get to learn new things and have new experiences. It's experiencing with people that makes it significant for me. What about you?
What about me? Just one word. That's the most important. The people are important, but my self-determination. It's like when I wake up in the morning and I have difficulty getting around, I'm just that much more determined that I'm going to do it.
Stubborn.
Well, whatever you want
It's
to call
good.
it.
It's
Whatever you
good.
want to call it, it's self-determination.
Yes, it is.
I have another question. Sandra, what's most important to you?
Right now in my life, being able to realize that I can let some things go that aren't as important as others. That as my world contracts externally, it becomes more internally. It's a really interesting process that I'm observing in myself. I don't need that anymore, or I don't need to do that anymore. I've done it, and my attention needs to go elsewhere. And this is what I feel. This is what I'm recognizing as being really important for myself. And spending time just reflecting, looking at the past, looking at the future, just looking at the present.
What about you, Sheila?
Learning to accept the changes and do this in a positive way rather than be angry about what I can't do, looking at what I can do and how I can still be actively involved in this world.
Absolutely, Sheila.
Again, I only have one word. And that's my independence. That's the hardest thing for me to let go of. And that's why I'm determined to stay in my own home. I show up.
My name is Sandra Thompson, and I am 85 years old.
My name is Sheila Miller, and I'm 93 years old, pushing 94.
My name is Jania Zapotoski, and I'm 87 years old.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content every week. If you want to catch more of our adventures, check out the videos right here on our YouTube channel. And remember to leave a comment below. Let us know what you think or what you'd like to see next. We love hearing from you. Catch you in the next one.
On the next chapter of Aging in Place.
I'm never going to Orlando Airport again. I'll go to Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but not Orlando. If you're young and going to Disney World, it's great, but no.